Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Tyler Price, and on my channel we talk about books, productivity, money, lifestyle, and anything else that you want to talk about. Today I want to chat briefly about historical romance novels. On many videos I've chatted about my love for historical romances and how I fell into this rabbit hole of historical romances since the Bridgerton series were released on Netflix. And I fell into the rabbit hole for a while and didn't really come out for air and still have not fully come out for air. I love historical romances. They're my absolute favorite of all genres. It's not a genre or a subgenre. I'll let y'all figure that out. And I read them. I not only read them, I devour them. I just love being transported really into Regency or Victorian period or even any other period that's like around that time and usually in England. I don't care for the Scottish ones. I do love when there's a Scottish lord, but it has to be based in like England. That's just my jam. I love that. With that said, I want to share with you all my top 5 historical romance novels that I've read. Let's get started. I want to share the top 5 historical romances that I read and one honorable mention. So the honorable mention is The Madness of Lord Ian Mackenzie. This book is such a great book. It follows Lord Mackenzie and his love interest Beth. Lord Mackenzie is, and I especially love this, he's a neurodivergent character, and so you see him and people say, yeah, he's eccentric. He had a very challenging childhood. His father was the Duke. He's actually the brother of the Duke. And there are other books by Jennifer Ashley that follow his brothers, but this one is his book. And so his brother's the Duke, and his father was also Duke, and the father really treated him badly. He sent him away to some insane asylum just because he was a little eccentric and very different. So eventually his brothers got him out, and now they're in society. And people know he's a little quirky, and he meets Beth and just falls heads over heels for her. And she was not alarmed by him or how he presented himself. She actually liked that he was a bit quirky, and he was so protective of her. So it's a very good book. I strongly recommend you guys check it out. Such a beautiful story of how, and I just love the way Jennifer Ashley wrote the character, with him being, neurodivergent and just kind of very, just innocently shares things. And even when he was with her, how he was just so open about his feelings for her. It's a great book. Y'all check it out. I don't want to give too much away, but this is an honorable mention. So the next books that I have in no particular order, I do have a couple of favorite. I may have a top 2, but really, the rest of them I just love them equally as much. And this one of them is called is the Tessa Dare book, Any Duchess Would Do. And so this follows Griffin, who's the Duke of Halford, and it takes us back to the Spencer Cove location. And I know that Tessa Dare had a few books with that same setting. I think Spencer Cove, from my understanding, is like where women who are spinsters go to kind of read and just have a fabulous life, just because, again, they're off the marriage market just because they didn't get chosen. So that's where all the wildflowers go. So this Duke needs a wife, and his mother's just tired of him, not wanting to take responsibility. So she was like, I'm going to take you to Spencer Cove. You walk in there, there are all these eligible women. Pick one. Just choose one and let's go. And I'm going to turn her into a duchess. So he was like, really? I can choose anyone? She says, absolutely. Just choose one. She's going to become a duchess. So he goes and he chooses her, the maid, and takes her home. And he said, well, mother, you said I can choose anyone. And so I choose her. And so this just kind of follows their story. And it's such a beautiful story. I have read a lot of Tessa Dare's books. I think this is one of the better ones. So definitely, guys, check it out. The next book is, let's see. Again, The Magic, with written by Lisa Kleypas. This book follows Eileen and McKenna, And they were, Aileen's father was, I don't know, the lord of the estate. I think he was an earl or something, I don't remember. And he was the servant on the estate. So they grew up together, they were friends, and he fell in love with her. And of course, I mean, she's the daughter of the Lord, so she has to, her only goal in life, or is not her goal, but really she is to marry, have a favorable marriage. And he just loved her, and he's a servant. And so something happened where he had to be sent away, and he resented and hated her for a long time. So he goes to New York and comes back years later, and his goal is to show up and take revenge on her because he just felt like she did him wrong, and he just hated her for all these years. Now he's back. He's very successful. He's an adult. He's also very good looking. And they meet up, and he sees her, and his goal was, he was like, he found out that she was not married. He was surprised by that because, again, he'd been gone for years. She should have been married. And so he was like, I'm just going to bet her and be done with her. And this follows their story. And when he discovers why she's not married, when he discovers what transpired after he left, it just shattered him. And so this is a second chance romance. I love second chance romance. That's my trope that I just love. A lot of my favorite books tend to have that as a trope. But it's such a beautiful story. And what I like about Lisa Kleypas is you have all these characters, and then they're intertwined with, I think, the Ravenels. I think it's the Ravenels. They're also connected somehow. And it's just such a beautiful experience to be in that world with the various books. And I've read them all. All of them, I read them all. And it's just wonderful. But again, the magic is by far one of my favorites by her. And I think if you kind of look through BookTube, you'll find that a lot of people love this one too. The next book is, which one do I want to do next? Gosh, these next three books, honestly, they're all my favorites. They're all number one. But let's go with To Sir Philip with Love. And so this follows Eloise. This is the Bridgerton series, and it's the 5th book. I read all 1 through 4 so that I can read 5. Because when you watch the show, Eloise's character, she's just beyond her time. And so I was just dying to read the book. I wanted to read her book. I'm disappointed that they haven't really shown her story. Like, they're going to do the other one, which, I read the book. It was okay. Romance of Mr. Bridgerton, it was okay. A lot of people love that book, though. It wasn't my favorite. This one is. And so this follows Eloise. And so I'll just give you a quick, brief synopsis of the book, but I'm not going to get too much into it because I'm trying not to do a spoiler. I was watching a YouTuber's video, and she totally spoiled one of the books. And I was like, girl, why did you? Why? Now I don't want to watch your channel anymore because you spoiled the book. And it was a book I haven't even read. And it was a thriller. You just ruined it. Anyway. So this follows Eloise. And what you find is, even when you watch the show, you notice that Eloise is always writing something. So apparently she was writing Dude. And so this guy, Sir Phillips, is Marina's husband. He's a widower. Marina is Eloise's cousin. Now, is it the same Marina as in the show, the pretty mixed girl? I'm not sure. Biracial? Very pretty? I'm not sure. I think she's biracial. Maybe she's not. Disregard that. But I don't know if it's the same one in the show, if the same Marina character. But in this book, Marina's Eloise's cousin, and she dies. And so Eloise starts writing her husband and just saying, first she sent a letter just expressing her condolence, and they started kind of communicating back and forth. And this goes on for a little while. Then he was like, I'd like for you to come and visit me. So she decides, okay, well, I'm going to go visit him. So one night when her parents and everyone was at the party, she decides she's going to sneak off and goes to see him. She knocks on his door, and he's like, whoa, what are you doing here? They have no chaperone. They're in the house. He has 2 kids. So he's like, I've reached out to my aunt. She's going to come, but the aunt's going to come in a couple of days. So anyway, their story kind of evolves from there. One thing I can say to you all is that, especially if you've watched the Bridgerton series, is that Eloise is not a regular person. So of course her love is going to be completely unconventional, right? And I just love the way that the story takes place. I love seeing her other brothers, Benedict and also the Viscount, show up in this book. And also what I also liked the most was that you really see the Viscount kind of stepping into his own in his role. Because in his book and also in the first, even in the series, he struggled with the responsibility and had a lot of just concerns and really a lot of demons related to how his father died, and he really struggled kind of walking in his father's footsteps. But in this book you could see him owning that role as a Viscount, and also being a bit more progressive, because what you expect him to do he doesn't do. I'm gonna leave it as that. You read the book and you find out. Anyway, I love this book. And then the last two books are my top two. Love them both. I can't choose which one is number one. So I want to talk about The Earl Takes All. Y'all, if you actually read all the books on my list because they're all good. The Earl Takes All, and the last three books I love equally, but The Earl Takes All, I still think about this book sometimes. Actually, I also think about the last book that I'll talk about. The Earl Takes All is by Lorraine Heath. So you have two brothers. One is an earl, and one is I think it's his twin brother. And so the twin brother's name is Edward. I don't remember the earl's name. So Edward, the earl, is married, and he's married to Julia. And Julia really can't stand Edward. Edward is, you have the earl who's the heir, and then you have Edward who's really the spare. And the spare does whatever the heck he wants, right? Anyway, the earl decides that he and his brother, they travel often. So finally, Edward said to the earl, look, you're gonna have a baby in a couple of months. Let's go on this trip. This will be our last kind of hooray trip before your world changes. So he leaves his pregnant wife at home, goes wherever with his brother, and he dies. Not a secret. It's in, like, I'm not giving anything away. He gets sick, and before he dies, he tells his brother, I need you to be me. You need to be the one that's dead, and I need you to be me, just until Julie has the baby. And then after she has the baby, then you can tell her the truth. But I don't want her to lose the baby. So he goes. So Edward returns as the earl. So they have a funeral for Edward. And so imagine being at Edward's funeral, and Edward is at his own funeral, and hear people talk crap about him. Like, yeah, he was this, he was a loser, or whatever. Anyway, so the story kind of evolves from there. And he has had feelings for Julia even before Julia was married to his brother. And, oh my God, the angst, the slow burn. This story is so good. And it's a great book to read. I have to say, like, Lorraine Heath, she brought it on, and the twist and the turns, and it's such a great story and even the title, The Earl Takes All, because he had to say, like, do I really want to take it all? Like, how would this work? How can would he be the Earl long term, or would the truth come out? And how would that happen when the truth comes out? So again, I love this book. Oh my God, I have a billion books to read. Otherwise, I would reread some of these books. But I made this one especially. It was so good. And then the last book is by one of my favorites. And I have to say, all these writers like Kleypas, Heath, Ashley, a couple of her books were hit or miss for me, but Kleypas and Heath and Quinn, I've loved most of their books. The Duke and I, the first book of the Bridgerton series, I didn't care for it. I thought it dragged a little bit too long. Anyway, I digress. The last book that I want to talk about, this video is already 12 minutes. I'm trying to keep my video shorter, but it's kind of hard, is My Darling Duke. Stacy Reid is by far my favorite historical romance author. I read everything by her. This book was the first book that I read by her. Let me get closer. My Darling Duke, and it's by far my favorite. Her other books have been good. They've been great. They've been 5 stars. But if I had to give a 6-star, which I don't know about giving 6 stars to anything, but this would be a 6-star read. It's just such a great book. So you have Catherine, who is... she's a wallflower, and so she and her friends, they're not married, they're just kind of sitting around, and she was just like, I need to do something, because otherwise my sister is not going to have a favorable marriage. And so what she decides to do is that she's going to pretend that she is engaged to this duke. There's a duke that no one has seen in a while. He hasn't been in society. So she was like, you know, nobody has seen him in like 10 years. He's probably at his estate in Scotland somewhere. So I'm just going to pretend like I'm his fiance. And that way I'll get, my sister would have a favorable marriage, because just by the fact that I'm engaged to the Duke, then it'll give her access. And after she gets a husband and everything's fine, then I'll just come out and maybe we'll break up, and, you know, no harm. So she does that, and all of a sudden, everybody's just coming to her. Even the Duke's people of business are like, oh, you need a better carriage, you need this. So she's like, okay. So they're giving her, you need clothes, you need an expense account. So she's living her best life as the Duke's fiance. So he hears about it, and he was like, you know, I'm very intrigued by this. He was like, so he tells his man of business, yeah, give her whatever she wants. On the other hand, she's having an account of this expenditures, because her goal is, I'm going to pay him back after all this, because I'll probably get a job as a governor or something, and I can pay him back. So he's hearing about her. She's getting in the society pages. Again, living her best life in this, as his fiance with this relationship. Then he decides, I think I want to show up into town. And so she shows up in town. And the way that he confronts her and how they met, classy. I loved it. I'm not giving it away. Finally, he says to her, he was like, you could continue being my fiance, but I would need you to come with me to my estate for X period of time. So his estate in Scotland. What we found is that the Duke was, he's handicapped, so he can't really, he has a disability. And so he has a hard time standing for an extended period of time, and he has significant pain. And so she was like, oh, sure. She was like, I don't know if I want to go with you. So she decides she's going to go to her parents, and I think it was her mom or aunt, I don't remember. And she was more than certain that they will say, absolutely not. It's improper. You cannot do that. You can't go with the Duke. It just doesn't look right. No, it's not done. She goes to her parents. They're like, go ahead. You're 25 years old. Oh, you do you. She was shocked by it. So anyway, she goes to his estate, and the story kind of goes from there. This is by far one of the most beautiful love stories that I've read. It's by far so touching, especially with him having the disability that he has, and just some of how he feels will impact his future, and him wanting to love her, but also love her the way that he wants to. So it's such a beautiful story, how two people from different worlds kind of come together, and I just love it, and it's a great book. And ever since I read the book, I've been in, I like Stacy Reid's style, because she takes stories that you're like, oh, and just kind of adds twists and turns to it that's just incredible. So guys, these are my favorite, my top historical romance reads. Definitely, there are others. If you have any recommendations, let me know. I've been reading through backlist, like I've read through Lorraine Heath's backlist. I think I have maybe like 5 or 6 more books. I've read through Tessa Dare's backlist. Kleypas, I read all of them. I think I have a few more, but I don't think I have that many, because guys, I love historical romances. I love Regency period. I love the gowns. I love dukes and lords and everything that jazz. So it's been fun. Thank you for joining. Like, subscribe to this channel, and I'll catch you on the next one.